The only reason why any price is moving on the market is because the shares are being bought and sold as well. And that activity is represented through the volume indicator. So please stick around with today's video because I'm going to reveal to you how do I use volume indicator on a daily basis and also show you one of the most powerful trade setup. So as I mentioned at the beginning, today's video I'm going to explain it to you all about the volume. First of all, why the volume is important. The volume is representation of the buyers and the sellers on the chart. That's all you need. That's all you need to understand the market flow and look for a trade setups. I'm also going to explain it to you the difference between buying volume, ending volume, selling volume, or starting volume. So let's get into real chart examples and let's have a look for some charts. Yeah, so the first real example is going to be NASDAQ market index from 17th of July. And what is the most important thing is to look for elevated volume at the major chart level or at the major chart area. And this is a perfect example because we had an opening candle with elevated volume. Just one quick tip. I always ignore the first 5-minute volume because it is market on open volume and the market on close, the last 5-minute candle. These volume usually are going to be the biggest one for a day, but I always ignore them. Okay, I'm not really taking them as an elevated volume because obviously the market on open and close is going to be very big volume. So what I'm going to do is take the area opening high. I'm also taking like the opening low, 15-minute low, and now I'm trying to look for elevated volume through the major levels. So where is the major level? One of the major level is definitely opening high, okay, which is around 694, 693. And if you look at the candle at 10 o'clock with elevated volume, so what that means? What is telling me? It is telling me that we had initial sellers at the open and those sellers were broken to the upside with elevated volume. So basically the buyers take control over the sellers from all the sellers from the open. And now what I'm going to do, because I already have my area of interest, where is the elevated volume? I found the candle with the elevated volume, which is right here at the price level 693. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to watch for retest and look at the following price action. Following price action supported by a VWAP, which is the yellow line, exactly came close to 693 level and start bidding back to the upside. So this is my level of interest, the level where the buyers take over the sellers to the upside. And I understand I'm going to watch this area, this price level for another push to the upside because that's where the buyers are stepping in. And look what happened once we get close to this 10 o'clock candle, another elevated volume on this candle, and we consolidate a little bit and we start taking to the next resistance level 702 on my chart. So this is one of the most powerful trade setup. Look for opening breakup volume and wait for a retest and take the after consolidation, after the pullback, look for entry to the long side. The second example would be on market index SPY. And again, I'm gonna go over the entire chart from the open. First of all, again, opening volume with the elevated volume candle. The second candle was even higher volume, which is right there. And you have to ask yourself what it is. It is the buying volume, it is the ending volume. Well, for me, it's definitely some sort of the ending volume as well, because we are approaching high of the pre-market levels. So it is profit-taking volume. Okay, I'm not really considering that as a new buying volume. And because we are always waiting for a retest of the buying or selling volume, you don't have to rush to anything. Okay, so let's move on with the chart. What is the next candle? The next candle definitely confirming me there is more sellers because look at the volume and look at the following price action. The following price action is taking lower. Okay, then we had a little bit elevated volume on the following selling candle, which is breaking new low of the day. Again, it makes sense, Why there is a elevated volume? Because we are breaking all the buyers to the downside, which were buying the market at the open. So that's why we are having elevated volume. What does it mean for you? It means basically there are sellers. So you can mark this area as a selling area. The opening low with the elevated volume right there, it is going to be your selling area, okay? And you can already see where the following sellers step in, but we're gonna get there a little bit later. First of all, let's continue to our analysis. We get lower and look what happened there at the price level around 744.50. We had first elevated volume to the upside, and this is what I'm calling the buying volume, the starting volume to the upside, because again, watch what happened for a following price action. We had a pullback into moving averages, then we had pullback to the low of the day, okay, which is right there, but we start again retesting these lows where the elevated volume previously step in, where the buyers step in. And also, as you can see, we had a little bit of the elevated volume to the downside. What does it mean for me? For me, it's definitely, it's telling me this is potentially, this candle right there, it's potentially ending volume. Why it is ending volume? Because previously we had first initial potential buyers, okay? We had the buyers, the following price action went to the upside, back to moving averages. Then we had a pullback to the downside, elevated volume, close to the area where previous buyers started in, and then we continue to repeat to the upside, okay? So if you are watching a tape, on the tape you have to see that we are constantly repeating price back to the upside. And look what happened. We start getting to the upside, we break the VWAP, and where we stop. Look where we stop, what I was saying at the beginning. We were stopping exactly where sellers step in from the opening price action, okay? So if you look at the elevated volume on this candle right there, so I was saying this is the initial selling volume. Why the selling volume? Because we are breaking opening buyers. Everybody who was buying opening candle, who was buying this move at the open, was below the money, was triggered by the stop loss, and that's where the sellers take over the buyers. So in this chart, you can say we identify two major levels. We identify the sellers level, which is right here, and we also identify the buying level, which is right here. Now you have a range which you can play. You can play the short to the downside from here, from your selling level, from the candle which we're selling to the downside, and you can also play long to the upside from the buying volume from this candle and from this pullback as well. So once you have a range, all you have to stay patient on the market and wait for your major levels. Now let's continue with volume analysis. Another major candle where right here. What this candle is represent, for me it represents the ending volume. Why it is ending volume? Because we were identifying the buying volume. Buying was confirmed by the pullback and the retest, and the tape were keeping repeating beat to the upside. We went on a little bit of the bullish movement to the upside through the VWAP, and also we approach our selling area from the morning. And if you take into consideration this little bit elevated volume, you have to understand we are at the end of the trend, which was happening from below right here, and this is potentially ending volume. So once you recognize the ending volume, you know you can wait for a signal to the short side. Another important candle is definitely this one. It is elevated volume to the downside. So what does it mean? For me, it means definitely a selling volume. Why it is selling volume or continue to selling volume? Because we are approaching from the selling area, breaking through the downside through the VWAP, And the following price action is also confirming my selling volume thesis. And where is your first target? Your first target is your previous buying area. But look what happened once we approach the buying level at the 744. We tried to bid in, tried to held, we make a little bit of the pullback back to moving averages. We tried to held for the second time. We went a little bit of the higher, but then again we had elevated volume where to the downside. What does it mean? It means the sellers. Now I would no longer be expected that this buying level would be held, but I'm going to expect the more downside pressure, and that's exactly what happened. Let's have a look for one and the last example. This is going to be the quick one, but also it's one of my favorite one. It is elevated volume to the upside with retest. So it is Nvidia from yesterday. We had a pre-market high. Pre-market high was taken by the opening price action. I think there was also a news, but you have to double check. Obviously, we had elevated volume at the open, but as I mentioned at the beginning, I ignore market on open volume because it's always one of the biggest one. And then following the third candle at the open, we had elevated volume to the upside through new high of the day. So what does it mean? It means the buyers are definitely in a chart. And also because the following price action, we went higher and we start making pullback. And look where this pullback happened, exactly at the 206.50 level, which is the low of this candle, which is the low of my third elevated volume candle for a day. And again, you are watching a tape and all you see on the tape, we are just repeating and repeating and repeating this price 206.50, and that's your signal to go long. That's your signal that the buyers are definitely still there. And now let's continue what happened on the chart Nvidia. We had another elevated volume, which is the candle right there. And the question is, why it is elevated volume candle? Well, because look at the chart. Look at the chart, what we are breaking to the upside. We are breaking new high of the day. So again, ask yourself, what does it mean? Why there is elevated volume? Well, because the buyers are very active. The buyers are chasing price. The buyers are taking this trade setup as a breakout through 208 level, which is right there. And that's why there is elevated volume. That's why the chart is continuing to going higher. Now, start questioning, what does it mean those three elevated volume candles? So the first one is happening right there, and as you can see, the price is going literally like a vertical to the upside. This is not a healthy uptrend. This is the momentum to the upside. Why this is elevated volume? It is new buying volume, or it is potentially ending volume. I would start saying this is some sort of like ending volume, because the people noticing there is a momentum to the upside, so let me take a profit. And the following candle, which is this one, even higher. We went even higher and we put even higher elevated volume. So what does it mean again? If you didn't take a profit from 208 all the way up to 211, which happened in less than 10 minutes, you're definitely going to take some profit 203, about 2012, all right? So that's why I'm considering this not as a new buying volume, but as a potential ending volume. Only because we had ending volume in a chart, it doesn't mean that the price cannot go even higher. It only means some majority of the people who were potentially buying the pullback right here or the breakout 208, they are start taking profit. In order to go lower, what would happen? We would have to have on a chart ending volume and new selling volume, which we don't really have, because if you following the price action again, we had another potential buying volume immediately when we put a little bit of the pullback right here. We start buying again. The buyers are so active, the buyers are so aggressive, and the price confirm you the buying thesis, the price are going higher. Then we had another elevated volume at the new high of the day at the 214 level, and that for me represent potential ending volume as well, because we are just taking another profit at the 2 to 14 level. So guys, the best practice for this volume analysis is if you open any chart and go candle by candle, and every time you see a little bit of the elevated volume, start questioning yourself. It is the new buying volume, it is potential new selling volume, or it is the ending volume of the trend. If we are in the end of our trend to the upside or to the downside, and you are seeing elevated volume again, you would have to start thinking this is potentially the ending volume instead of new buying or selling volume. It takes a little bit of the practice for sure, but once you stick to these practices, you will start noticing all these movements and you will start noticing your trade setups as well. And once you also see the elevated volume candles, you don't really have to rush anything, because what I do personally, I always wait for retest. So let the price action confirm you first what your theses are, and then take a trade setups. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you like this video, and talk to you the next video.